My father secretly cut me out of his will, and I only found out at the worst possible time. I was in the middle of planning my wedding when everything started to go downhill. My fiancée, Sarah, and I were finalizing guest lists, sorting through flower arrangements, and juggling all the little details that come with planning such a huge event. It was stressful, but the good kind of stress, the type that made me feel like my life was moving forward. We were making plans for the future, buying a house together, and even discussing having kids someday. The wedding itself was going to be expensive, but I wasn't too worried. My father, a successful businessman, had always assured me that I would be well taken care of when the time came. I never doubted him. My relationship with my dad wasn't perfect, but we were close. He had always been a bit of a tough character, strict, traditional, and not one to shower affection. Growing up, we had our disagreements, especially when I decided not to follow in his footsteps and pursue my own career instead of joining the family business. But those were just typical father-son spats. We still talked often, and I never thought our differences would run deep enough to cause any real friction. The thought that anything could be wrong between us never crossed my mind. The rest of the family dynamic was complicated, to say the least. My dad had remarried a few years after my mom passed away, and my stepmother, Joan, was a bit of a wild card. She was always polite, but there was something about her that felt distant, as if she wasn't really interested in being part of our family. Then there were my step-siblings, Peter and Chloe. We didn't exactly click, but I wouldn't say we were hostile either. Our interactions were always cordial but detached, like three strangers forced to sit at the same dinner table out of obligation, rather than any real connection. I didn't pay much attention to them, to be honest. My dad had always made it clear that I was his son, his blood, and nothing could change that. At the time, my dad had started showing signs of aging, more than I wanted to admit. He'd had a few health scares in the past year, nothing too serious, but enough that Sarah and I began to talk about estate planning. You know, the kind of conversation every couple has when they're planning their future together. She was cautious, asking if I had checked everything regarding the will, especially with my dad's health starting to decline. I wasn't worried. I knew I was covered. I had heard my dad talk about the will before, and I had no reason to think anything had changed. Still, for peace of mind, I decided to double check. I called our family lawyer, Mr. Watkins, a man who had handled my father's legal affairs for years. It wasn't a big deal in my mind, just a formality. We set up a meeting to go over everything. Sarah insisted on joining me, just to be thorough. The conversation started off as expected. Mr. Watkins was his usual professional self, pulling out documents and going over the estate details. We talked about assets, properties, and all the things that would one day pass down to me, or so I thought. Then, as he flipped through some papers, I noticed something odd. He paused for a moment, his brow furrowing, before carefully setting the documents on the table in front of us. "I'm not sure how to say this," he began, a hint of hesitation in his voice. "But your name, it's not listed in the most recent version of your father's will." At first, I thought I'd misheard him. That didn't make any sense. My father had always been clear that everything would be left to me. It had been understood for as long as I could remember. My heart started racing, and I asked him to explain. "It seems your father revised the will a few months ago," Mr. Watkins continued, flipping the document around so I could see for myself. Sure enough, my name was